I feel I should make it very clear to our listeners that I am not in seriousness suggesting that she actually parachuted directly into a small hole in a tree.
I kind of like the idea, though.
I was joking.
I got in there.
Hole in one.
And then there's just and roll the credits. Take that, Nazi spy.
Oh, gosh, roll wacky sacks, right?
Okay, so anyway, an article appeared in The Independent, a UK paper, in March 2013, with the headline, "Is this the Bella in the Witch Elm? Unraveling the mystery of the skull found in a tree trunk." And they've got a picture of a woman. What happened is that a German spy did come into England in 1941. He was captured by the Home Guard right after he parachuted into the country, when he was taken to MI5, who interrogated him, and they found a photo of a woman on him. This woman right here, and it was kind of actually a postcard kind of format. She'd written something in English on the back. By the way, she's a German. This person,
Okay.
the man, the spy was named Joseph Jacobs, and so the woman he said was Clara. And I'm probably going to mangle this, but here goes Bauerl, Clara Bauerl. So anyway, according to Jacobs, she was a German singer and actress, and apparently they had met in Germany and hung out and been lovers and everything. And supposedly she had been recruited to also spy for the Germans, and she was going to parachute into Britain and join him after he got established and radioed back home and said that he made it okay. He said that he didn't really think she'd be coming since he'd been captured and hadn't made radio contact, especially when you think about it. I mean, sending her in after he's obviously been captured.
Seems like a bad idea.
Yeah. She's already been blown. I mean,
her cover's already shot.
Yeah. So, I mean, in some respects, she would have been a good Nazi spy. According to some accounts, she had actually spent 2 years in Britain, in the West Midlands, so she knew the area. She spent that time singing in halls and stuff like that, which is what they did back in those days before they had things like CDs and
So she was the music hall singer.
Well, that
musician,
was something that made me wonder, is that does kind of fit in with Anna's letter and Anna's revelations. So the spy ring.
Artist.
So instead of this Clara person becoming involved with the spy ring, maybe she was just the third person of the spy ring. Instead of...
I could see that.
Yeah.
That it's just like a bunch of different kind of family stories, right?
Yeah.
They say, crazy grandpa says, oh no, yeah, there was this spy ring that was here, and, he's got his facts a little muddled.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. So anyway, she'd spent 2 years working in that area. She spoke English very well. She was familiar with the area, so she would have been a good spy in those respects. Although there was actually in another website from Joseph Jacobs' granddaughter, Giselle, she says that she'd found in the National Archives from their interrogations of Jacobs that he believed that she had never been to England before. So again, a little bit of a contradiction there. So on the downside of her utility as a Nazi agent, she would have, if she had actually spent that time in England 2 years singing, she would have performed in front of a lot of people and who would know her to be a German singer. And the odds of being spotted on the street just by some random dude were fairly good.
Did they release that photo, though?
Of her? No.
Yeah, so what...
Well, I think what Joe's getting at is prior to the war having broken out, people would have seen her and said, "Oh, that's
that German chick."
Yeah,
the German
Claire or whatever her name is.
Yeah, exactly.
And I remember, and she was a traveling German. And wait, what is a German doing in this country at this time? We're at war with them.
Unless Jacobs was mistaken or misled and believed that she had never been to England, but in fact she was a fluent English speaker and maybe could pass for an English woman.
Except again, if she acquired her English skills by hanging out as a German in England, then she would be known to many people as a German in England.
Well, again, it depends on where she was at.
Yeah. Like if she learned in London and then went to West Elm or whatever, or not West Elm, whatever this place that we're talking about is.
What is the area again, Joe?
The West Midlands?
Yes, West Midlands. I mean, she could have been anywhere else. It's a very small community, so it'd be easy just to go to a town that's 50 miles away and never see a soul that you've never met before.
People weren't quite as mobile in those days.
Yeah, and additionally, she could say, oh yeah, I'm moving on to my next place soon, and go and get murdered or whatever. Somebody's figured her out, so she says, oh, I'm leaving town. nobody thinks anything of it, and then a year and a half later, I don't know that, anybody would think of it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's hard to say.
Yeah. It's hard to say what kind of counterintelligence was happening, right?
Mm-hmm. So anyway, back to the luckless Joseph Jacobs. He was actually cooperative with MI5, but they felt that he wouldn't be of any value. Apparently, the Home Guard wasn't too secretive in the fact that they had nabbed him, and so the word of his capture had gotten out, so they couldn't really successfully turn him. So they did what they did back in those days. They executed him.
No.
Yeah, they executed him by firing squad in the Tower of London.
That's humane.
Yeah. Well, that's the way they did it with the Germans in those days. You're gonna either cooperate or we're gonna shoot you. And in his case, sadly, he was willing to cooperate apparently, but they shot him anyway.
At the Tower of London?
In the Tower of London.
Yet another murder at the Tower of London.
Yeah, he was actually the last person to be executed in the Tower of London.
Was he?
Yeah, he was.
I remember that. I do remember seeing his parachuting gear in the Tower of London. It's actually on display.
Oh, is it really?
And I thank you for doing. I never made the connection when I was doing the research. I never saw that he was the last person.
Yeah,
but
did they have this picture?
They didn't have that picture, but they have all of his gear. And if I'm not mistaken, I think all of his gear was painted white, like he was going to drop into a snowy landscape, but it wasn't snowy.
Weird.
So he just stood out like a sore thumb, and I think he got hurt when he landed.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, bad luck.
Yeah, very bad luck.
So we heard it's snowing in Britain this time of the year. Yeah, right. Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah. So anyway, poor guy got he has a granddaughter whose name is Giselle Jacobs, and she has a website devoted to his history. The same photo of Clara Bowell that you saw in the Telegraph article is also on her site, but it's uncropped, and it tells a little bit different story because Bella, as we know, was 5 feet tall from the reconstruction.
Yeah, very small woman.
Yeah.
But when you look at this photograph with the uncropped one, where you can see her legs and everything, does she look like she's 5 feet tall?
She looks like she's 5'8".
She looks like she's 5'8" to 6 feet tall.
Yeah, she looks like a very tall woman.
And she may not actually be, because oftentimes with like the weight to height ratio of the olden days. But she's definitely not 5 feet.
No.
She's at least 5'5", I would say.
Yeah, and if you look at the proportion of her head to her shoulders, for example, I mean, if she was 5 feet tall, that means her head would be...
shoulder pads were...
even taking into account shoulder pads, I mean, if she was 5 feet tall, her head would be the size of a cantaloupe.
Yeah.
So this person, this Clara Burrell, cannot be Bella, in my opinion.
I agree.
So we solved that mystery anyway. Take that, independent UK.
Yeah.
Yeah. She, Giselle Jacobs she apparently delved into the National Archives to get a lot of this information. So she got information about not only Joseph Jacobs and Clara, but she also got some information on another German Abwehr spy named Karl Richter, who had known them both back in Germany. And according to his reminiscence of Clara, he remembered her being very tall for a woman.
Oh, so supporting what you've seen in the photo. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so conclusion, this Clara Barrel I'm sorry I keep mangling her name, but and Bella were not the same person.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would say also Bella could have been a spy, but this kind of shoots the hell out of the spy theory, in my opinion. I
agree.
think there's any reason to believe that she was a spy. I think that probably a more mundane reason is somebody, for some reason, murdered her and stuffed her in that tree. It's a weird way to get rid of a body.
Yeah.
And also, to add another layer of fun to this whole thing, her skeleton went missing. So Professor J.M. Webster...
Oh, Bella's skeleton?
Bella's skeleton is gone. It's
gone.
So they took it. So he took it back to his lab. Professor Webster took it to his lab, and then he later gave it to a friend. A friend.
Can you hold this for me?
Yeah,
hold this for me for a couple days.
So he had a friend that was really into D&D, and he wanted some props. No, he had a friend at Birmingham University Medical School, and so he gave the skeleton to him for further testing. But somehow they managed to misplace the skeleton.
Oh my gosh.
So,
that's incredible.
Yeah. Well, and that's the kind of thing that fuels conspiracy theories and stuff like that, don't you think? Skeletons.
I'm sure that just lit a fire right under this. She must have been a spy, and they got rid of her bones so that nobody could prove that she was a spy. That's just the way those things go.
That's that kind of silly logic. I mean, they don't really need to get rid of her bones to do that.
No.
In fact, if she had been a spy, I mean, say if she jumped into the country, parachuted in. There's no dental records. There's no ID. There's no way to identify this person. Why would you even go to the bother of hiding the body? If she had been a spy. Because if you know she's a spy...
And you say, I found a spy.
No, you could say that, but you could just basically stab her to death, leave her body to be found anywhere, and there's going to be no trail of guilt leading back to you because nobody knows who she is, and since they can't identify her, how are they going to identify any of her associates?
Yeah.
Stuffing her in the tree is kind of indicative of somebody fearing being caught.
Yeah.
It does say, that's the behavior of someone who knows that they could get in big trouble for doing this, is let's hide the evidence.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the thing, right? We've talked about this a little bit, is like, that's the big thing, that's the big question mark on this, is that that all leads to her being a local woman, or at least being not far from home, and maybe within 50 miles or something. It's not like she was, thousands of miles from home. It's just so weird that nobody, she has a deformity, she's small, she's ostensibly got a child, which means, she had a wedding ring, which means she had a husband.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things totally point to somebody knowing who she is.
Well, the other thing about Britain at that time is during the war, it wasn't uncommon for people in London, say, to send their wife to the country.
But they usually...
Because it was safer, because the Luftwaffe were targeting London proper. So, honey, go stay in the country at, Aunt Edna's house, and you'll be safe there. You're less likely to get bombed, and I'm going to stay here and do whatever he's got to do here. It could be that she had just gotten there and something happened. It could be she was traveling to that location and somebody found her and didn't know her, but just said, I probably shouldn't leave this body hanging around.
Yeah, it could be some sort of serial killer, rapist kind of person. It's not like serial killers that had never existed until the 1970s.
Yeah, well, and I was going to say is I know the rape theory is one that's out there, that somebody raped her and then realized they were in trouble and then followed up by murdering her.
Yeah, but then what about the right hand?
Yeah, I don't know that I don't want to buy into that it was necessarily cut off.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily.
I will go with that it came off of her body, but I don't know that happened pre-mortem and not post-mortem.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair, like a raccoon.
Yeah, like a raccoon.
Some critter got in there and was snacking at it, and it's like we talked about with the Salish Sea feet. There's where a joint is where things are weakest and come apart the easiest.
That's true.
Yeah. So
okay.
That's what I think is probably more of a random crime like that. Hagley Wood is actually right next to a road, so if you were going to stop off somewhere, it would be a convenient place to do it.
Sure.
Anyway, back to the graffiti. This mysterious graffiti in various forms kept appearing for many decades. In August 1999, on the estate of Lord Cobham, the hapless Lord Cobham, whose people won't stay the hell off his property for some reason. So there's a 200-year-old stone obelisk on the Hagley Hall estate, and it had been tagged with graffiti, and same thing, who put Bella in the witch
Did
elm.
they spray paint it?
I couldn't tell from the picture.
I know the original was done in chalk.
Yeah, from this one, it didn't look spray painted. It looked to me like it was brush painted, or perhaps chalk.
But it was paint.
Yeah, it looked to me like paint. I know, rude.
What a way to deface a 200-year-old monument.
For sure, yeah.
Anyway, Lord Cobham is probably contemplating some sort of barbed wire electrified fence or something like that. Trouble when you have enormous estates like that is keeping people off them. It's kind of hard. Anyway, that was the last known instance of the graffiti until yesterday, when the same mysterious message was found spray painted on a wall in downtown Portland.
Lies.
Nice.
Lies.
Okay, I'm lying about that. So anyway, there you go. Another unsolved mystery solved. Well, not quite, but at least we've cleared up that little bit of muck that the Independent UK put in there about this Clara Burrell.
From the photo.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that wasn't her. Sorry,
I wonder if
guys.
that was convenient cropping on their part.
Sure it was.
It must have been, because, you can't look at the full-size photo and think this is a 5-foot-tall woman.
No.
I mean, you really can't.
No.
I mean, Okay, so anyway, that's it. I hope you guys are happy that we solved another mystery so you can sleep well tonight. So anyway, if you want to see any of the links that are involved, that are related to this story, you can find them on our website, which is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook. Find us also on iTunes. And if you find us on iTunes, you can download all you want, but please stop, leave us a rating, maybe leave a remark or two, a little comment. We like that stuff. Yeah.
We do.
We do. It's true. Yeah.
You can also find us on Stitcher. Oh yeah, and by the way, if you're like, say, the graffiti artist or maybe the murderer, we'd love to hear from you. Please send us an email at thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. Okay, well, so we do want a little bit of listener feedback here. We did get some comments. Devin, would you like to read us a comment?
Well, sure. It's from Jenna, who has been a listener for a while. She's left us a couple comments, but she just said that I was on the Salish Sea feet episode. She said that she really liked the topic, but she hoped that if we had short topics that we would do like a couple stories to make a full hour, because we were really good at helping her through her boring work days.
Cool.
So
Thanks,
we'll definitely
Jenna.
take that into consideration. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, I don't know how we would manage that.
Yeah.
But
We've
we'll have
talked about how much we hate people who put together 3 of the episodes.
their
they've
best
already
ofs, and
broadcast.
so we would have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
We never know exactly how long these things are going to go.
Yeah,
No.
sometimes we think it's going to be a short one and it ends up being
And we just
really long.
drone on endlessly. God, yeah.
We never
We'll,
stop.
yeah, we'll actually probably start throwing some filler into some of the shorter ones and maybe some commercials too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, Jenna, thanks so much for the comment,
Yeah.
and thanks so much for listening to us. We love the fact that we're being appreciated by somebody at least.
Jeez, Joe.
Okay, let's get back to what we were talking about.
Awesome.
Oh, and one last thing before we go, I want to give a shout out and a big thanks to Stephanie, our listener, who suggested the Hagley Woods story to us. Thank you very much, Stephanie, and please feel free to send us more suggestions in the future.
Love those suggestions.
We sure do.
We do. All right, that's it. Another mystery solved. Another week down. So, good night, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Oh, who did put Bella in Witch Elm? Hey guys, Happy New Year. We hope you had a good New Year. We sure did. We are making one big change to the podcast this year, and that is that we are inviting sponsors to advertise on the show. This will keep it free for you guys and free for everyone. And one thing that would really help us is if we really knew who was listening and what you guys are interested in, so that we can make sure that ads are really matched to you and you're not hearing about stuff you don't really care about. So if you would go take this quick survey, it's like 5 minutes, podsurvey.com/sideways. That's podsurvey is podsurvey.com/sideways. You guys know how to spell sideways. You can also enter to win a chance at a $100 gift card to Amazon, which would be pretty cool. So thanks for supporting us in this decision. Thanks for helping us find the best advertisers, and thanks for listening.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't get it.
Uproot the aliens.
You must unlearn what you have learned. I don't know.
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hey there. Welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways. I am Joe, joined as always by my co-hosts
Devin?
and
Steve.
I almost gave it away.
You almost
Damn
gave away my surname.
it. Spoiler alert, everybody. Okay. Wow. So we've got another cool mystery this week. First off, I want to say this was suggested by Mike, and a long time ago, I think.
A year or two?
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, hi,
Sometime
Mike.
in the 21st century.
I hope you're still alive and still listening to us, Mike. Thanks. What we're going to talk about is a very notorious double murder that happened almost 100 years ago in the far-off and exotic country of New Jersey. You've heard of New Jersey, probably?
Yeah.
Yeah. Home of like Atlantic City and all that good stuff.
Familiar, yeah.
Yeah, and of course we got to riff on New Jersey a little bit, and double murder in New Jersey, so what? Big freaking deal.
Everyday occurrence.
I know, pretty much. We're just kidding, our New Jersey listeners. Hey guys, don't take it seriously. We're just having a little fun. So let's get back to our notorious double murder here. Some of you might have heard of this. It was actually a huge deal back when it happened. It was like up until that time, it was the biggest thing in the national news until it got bumped by the Lindbergh baby case.
Yeah, it took about a decade before it got superseded.
Yeah.
But up until that time, it was pretty freaking huge. So what happened is, on the morning of September 16th, 1922, 2 bodies were discovered in a field that was part of a farm that had an abandoned farmhouse on it, and it was kind of a lover's lane. It was a little road called it's in northwest New Brunswick, New Jersey, and it's called DeRussy Lane. And I looked for it on Google. I can't find it. I'm hoping some of our New Jersey listeners, if they're not angry with us and they haven't shut us off already, hoping they can look at some old maps and maybe find it.
Yeah.
But it's off of Easton Avenue. It kind of runs parallel to the river there. If you're familiar with, of course, you all know where the river is in New Brunswick, right?
Well, it's where you drop the bodies, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these people apparently were too lazy or just too impatient to get all the way to the river, so they dumped the bodies a little short of it.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah. The bodies were discovered by 2 young lovers. Of course, it was Lover's Lane, so they were out for a morning stroll. And I would give you their names. Actually, their names are available and out there, but you'd forget them right away, and it's not that important anyhow, right?
It's Raymond Schneider and Pearl Bombers.
Yeah, and actually, I probably should say their names because there was talk about possibly one or the other being involved in the murder itself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's kind of important.
Yeah, it is. So he was 23 and she was 15. I'm not sure if that was entirely legal, but let's just take it one crime at a time, right? Our 2 lovers were walking down good old DeRussy Lane and headed towards that abandoned farmhouse I mentioned a moment ago. And then they saw something. Reportedly, she saw it first. A couple of bodies underneath a crabapple tree.
I was going to say, clearly they've never seen, like, any horror movies at all. You don't walk to an abandoned barn.
Horror movies weren't quite a thing in 1922?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Good point. It's really true. Those weren't more innocent times. Probably people didn't really look at an abandoned thing and immediately think, serial killer, mad slasher, or anything like that, like we do today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we totally do, right?
Yeah, I do.
I do, yeah.
Our listeners obviously do. We've gotten those emails.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I don't go into those places without a Claymore mine duct taped to my chest.
We should just talk about your defensive strategy for like a quick second.
Yeah, I like it.
Face towards enemy is not a good strategy.
Yeah, I want to point it outwards. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And even then, I'm not sure if you would survive one of those. But
I don't think you would.
No.
Yeah.
No, pretty sure you won't.
We got to find a guinea pig. Oh, anyway, back to
what
our
story. What did the guinea pig ever do to you?
Yeah, no, I don't mean like I like guinea pigs. I'm talking about. Oh, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this is the position of the bodies. I'm sure you guys have read about this. They were carefully posed. They were laid out on their backs, side by side, with their feet towards a crabapple tree.
It was a man and a woman.
And it was a man and a woman. His right arm was extended and was underneath her neck, and her left arm was extended towards him, and her hand was resting on his right leg.
And she was on
his right side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they were both laying on their back.
So it was the leg closest to her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And his hat had been placed over his face, and he was wearing his glasses, by the way. Her scarf had been wrapped around her neck, and it appears that it was wrapped around her neck by the killer, or killers.
Post-mortem.
Yeah, post-mortem. You'll find out why in a sec. They had both been shot in the head. He was shot once in the head, and she was shot 3 times.
It was once above the right eye and then twice just below it, I think is where the entry wounds were at.
For her?
So, yeah.
Something like that, but yeah.
And they were shot from the front.
Yeah.
Correct.
Mostly from the front. Actually, his wound was kind of in the side. It kind of went in, I think, kind of behind his ear and came out his neck or something like that.
Almost like maybe he turned his head at the last second or something.
Could have been. Yeah. Somebody's trying to shoot me. That's probably what I would do.
Yeah.
Or put my hands up. That'll stop that bullet. Yeah. Oh, as I said, it appears that the scarf was wrapped around her neck post-mortem because when they unwrapped the scarf from her neck, it turns out her throat had been cut, like from ear to ear, that kind of thing. And apparently it was like infested enough with maggots that indicated that the bodies had been there at least 24 hours, and probably more like 36, 48 hours, something like that.
They were posed in a way that didn't really lead to very much suspicion, I would say, right? I mean, it's a lover's lane. If it's nice enough weather, they're just taking a nap.
If somebody walks by and sees
that,
the body,
especially
from
with the scarf over the gash in her neck and the hat over his face, that seems sort of like they're hiding the wounds.
It wouldn't be blatantly obvious.
You would maybe walk past and it would just look like, oh, they're just two lovers laying there.
Mm-hmm. It does happen, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, dead bodies, and people just think, oh, it's somebody taking a nap. It's not unusual. So that's a good strategy.
Yeah.
And, of course, guarantees the body's going to be nice and ripe by the time they're found. And so, the riper they are, the better it is for you, the murderer, right? Yeah. The cut, by the way, in her neck was from the right side, that's her right, to the left, which indicates to me, at least, that it was a left-handed killer.
Oh, we had this conversation with Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, I was going to say, I still disagree with the automatic presumption. Killer could have been behind her. It could have been, instead of a forehand, a backhand slash. There's a number of ways that could go.
Oh, yeah.
Although it doesn't seem like we're talking haphazard slash. Like, I agreed with you with Jack the Ripper, right? That if you're like slash backhanded or slash backhanded.
We also don't know if this cut was what killed her.
Right.
Or if the shots were. I presume that the shots happened first, at which point she's laying on the ground. So it would have been a slow cut either way, but you can drag your hand across one direction and not resisting you.
That's true.
That makes it easier for sure. Yeah, but so anyway, it doesn't really matter. There were no obvious suspects who were left-handed, so at least that I know of. But,
Lefty got off.
Yeah, I know. That's if the guy's nickname was Lefty. That'd be funny. There were 2 autopsies done on her body, one just after the murder and then another one 4 years later when the investigation was reopened. And that autopsy, they discovered that her larynx and her tongue had been removed, interestingly. And so I don't know how the first medical examiner managed to miss something like that. You would think.
That seems like a pretty big thing to
seems like kind of a glaring oversight. Yeah. All I can say is, maybe they just looked at the bullet hole in the slit throat and they just thought, cause of death, open and shut, maybe? I don't know.
I mean, maybe it wasn't an autopsy, but just because I had to look this up because the larynx, it's the larynx that was missing, right?
Yeah.
That is just below your
Thank
jaw.
You saw me feeling my neck.
Basically, where a man's Adam apple is, up to the bottom of the chin, it's somewhere in that range. So it's...
And it's connected to the tongue, is that true?
Sort of connected to the tongue by muscle tissue, yes. Sort of, not perfectly.
Yeah. So an interesting little souvenir to take if you're the murderer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just seems like it would be messy.
Yeah, extremely messy.
You know?
Yeah.
And that it would have left a lot of blood trace and stuff like that.
That's why you bring Ziploc bags.
I guess. Not
Ziploc
probably in the 20s.
super popular then.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking,
if indeed all of this took place while she was alive or was the cause of death, there should have been tons of blood spatter.
Well, there should have been tons of blood flow, even if she was dead, unless her body had been drained of blood, which would be another really important thing.
True. I mean,
to know.
Yeah, I know. I didn't. The crime scene was kind of contaminated, but you'd think still that massive amounts of blood would be kind of evidence. But I haven't found any evidence that there was. I'm sure there was lots of blood, and it was
just the writings or the investigation stuff is.
But that it would be all over her as well.
A lot of it on her, but she was wearing dark clothing too, so that's there's that, and a lot of it would soak into the ground. The state of the bodies, it could be like what Devin was saying. It could just be somebody arranged them to look like 2 lovers taking a nap or just hanging out. Or it could suggest sort of a ritualistic kind of serial killer kind of pose.
Yeah.
And I doubt that they actually did it themselves since they'd been shot in the head, right? That kind of makes sense. The killer did.
Yeah, this is not a murder-suicide pact thing. No way.
Oh, that's one of
Or even a happenstance of that just happens to be how they fell.
Yeah, because seeing as how they're... Yeah, no. That theory is completely out there. I don't even know why you put that in.
I kind of like it. Well, my theory is that all the townsfolk, when they heard that there had been 2 bodies discovered, came running right away to trample the crime scene and take souvenirs. And
They really did.
Yeah, they did. They totally did. And I'm just imagining that they get there and he's laying there with a revolver in his hand and somebody says, hey, hey, that'd be a cool souvenir, and just grabs it. So it could have happened.
Well, yeah, you guys have both seen the photos of people all over that place. It was a zoo.
It was a circus. It was I mean, there's all these guys wearing their suits and their derby hats and everything, and there's like a crowd of them around this crabapple tree, and they're all grinning and carving their initials into this crabapple tree.
They weren't carving their initials; they were carving chunks of it away.
Yeah, they were
in
doing
the
that
images
too.
that I saw. You could tell they were taking big scrapes out of it down to bare wood. I'm sure that tree was done.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, what'd that crabapple tree do to them?
I know.
I mean, it was a little crabby, but
yeah, but it makes kind of a crappy souvenir, really. You know, it looks like a piece of wood.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, this came from like near a murder scene. Oh, well, big
Prove
deal.
it.
But also, like, really? I mean, we all three are like weird people who like unsolved mysteries and murders and things like that. I cannot fathom being like, oh, murder? Cool. I need a souvenir. What?
I could see you doing it.
I could,
Fine.
I would get a souvenir too. I'd grab the murder weapon. Because you always want to get caught with that, with your fingerprints on it and everything.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. But anyway, as I said, there's not much else in the way of evidence because, again, it was all trampled on by everybody. So the bodies were really the only intact, untainted evidence at the scene. And I'm not even totally sure about that because I wouldn't be surprised if their pockets weren't rifled. Seriously.
Well, and so here's part of the problem. We should explain this right now. Is that the property where the bodies were found were just on the edge of two different police districts.
Yeah, two different counties.
Yeah, and so the wrong county showed up first and. Oh my gosh, what's going on? And then realized they had no jurisdiction and they were totally off the hook. So they just left, from the way I understand it.
Yeah, I know they did.
Didn't try to secure the scene.
They really should have.
The authorities who should have been investigating it showed up. They had to shoo away the giant crowd because there were no police keeping people back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of surprised they weren't like parading around with the bodies on their shoulders.
Like Weekend at Bernie's style?
Yeah, get a picture of this, huh?
But the initial pose of the bodies was, I mean, that's what it was reported, right, by the couple that found them.
Yeah, it was. And I actually think that it's entirely possible that they were picked over a little bit, but they were pretty much, I think, left actually the way they were found.
Yeah.
Again, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody like grabbed a wallet or a watch. I mean, actually, the guy's watch was missing. So maybe somebody kept it.
So hard to tell, yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me.
That's Mr. Hall.
Yeah, Mr. Hall. Yeah,
spoilers!
Yeah, spoiler alert there.
It's not in the episode title or anything.
I'm not sure how recognizable the bodies were because this was September, so it wasn't like...
It's warm.
Yeah, but it wasn't super hot. It wasn't like a hot July, week or anything like that. So maybe they were pretty ripe, or maybe they weren't too... maybe they were recognizable, I'm not sure. But luckily there was a calling card at the man's feet. And by the calling card, I don't mean the kind your dog leaves for you.
Or like the kind of card that like a serial killer...
Not that kind of card. It's actually a literal calling card. It was like a business card, but it's just, got your name on it. And in this case, the name was the Reverend Edward W. Hall.
Calling cards are an interesting little relic of the
history
past.
around those are...
You should look it up, everyone, because I really am struggling to not just give you a little history lesson on the etiquette of calling cards. So everybody look it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
You will enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we get calling cards?
Yeah.
We probably should,
should.
Yeah, with our logo on them and everything.
Oh, I don't know if we want to do that.
Yeah, why not?
They're going to end up at crime scenes.
Yeah, I know. That would be funny, wouldn't it?
That's true.
Yeah, luckily our last names wouldn't be on them, so good luck finding us, copper.
Ha-ha.
Yeah. The dead guy, turns out, was an Episcopal Episcopal priest at the Church of St. John the Evangelist in New Brunswick. He was 41. And also, by the way, the card was found leaning up apparently against his shoe. And the crowd found it, and they were all passing it around and stuff.
Right, so it was covered in fingerprints.
Yeah, it's got bloody fingerprints on it. I don't know if that was from the killer or if that was just from the crowd. They got a little blood on their hands, and then we're just passing this card around. So, great job, guys.
I would have, you know what? It can't be from the crowd because if the bodies have been there for 36 hours and the heat,
that's true. The blood would have coagulated.
It wouldn't be as if it was just fresh and wet. It would be mostly dried, possibly a little sticky.
Well, although I have to say this, the pictures that I I've seen of the card that were only black and white. So I saw smudges and fingerprints on it. Maybe it wasn't red.
Yeah.
It could have been it, but maybe it was just dirt. People had dirty hands.
That's true, but I do know they dusted the card for fingerprints.
Yeah, but good luck.
Because fingerprinting was coming. It was in its infancy.
It was like the
time.
only thing you could do.
It definitely fingerprinting was a thing, but God knows how many fingerprints they found on those.
Oh God,
cards.
You've seen the picture?
Oh yeah, and it was covered with them.
And the real trick on fingerprinting in those days, right, was like you had to have a suspect to compare the fingerprints to. It's not as though they had a database that they could run that fingerprint through.
Exactly.
You had to actually say, okay, we think this might be your fingerprint, Bob. So we're going to take your fingerprints and, yep, they match.
Yeah.
It's you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and definitely, I can't imagine what it was like back in the day before computers. I mean, now the FBI and everything, they can run them through databases and it was just easy. But in the old days, can you imagine what a tedious job that would be? It's like,
flipping through the book.
Here comes the mail. Oh, another set of fingerprints for me to look through like all of our files. And I know they had methods of identification to sort them out and stuff and narrow it down. But still, what a tedious job that was.
Oh yeah, no, there was some ways to speed it up, but boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to listen to a podcast to get through your day, right?
Except
they didn't exist.
They didn't exist yet.
I know.
Old-timey radio shows.
Yeah.
Basically podcasts.
Yeah. And as for Esther Ideen, the woman, apparently everybody in the church congregation knew that the Reverend was having a little thing with one of his choir singers. Turns out her name was Eleanor Mills, age 34, and so she was easy to identify. She was married to Jimmy Mills, who was a church sexton in the Episcopal Church, and he was also a janitor at a nearby school.
And so the sexton is the guy who's responsible for opening the church and ringing the bells and things like that. Is that right? I read about it, but it didn't. I was like,
I'm so ignorant of that stuff.
I know one of their duties was ringing the bell, so he did things at the church.
All I know is the first three letters are sex. That's all I know. I have no idea what the sexton does, to be honest.
Okay.
I know I'm supposed to know everything, but I prefer to know all about crime and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's the person who's charged with the maintenance of the buildings and or surrounding graveyards.
Okay, so he was a maintenance man.
Yeah, basically.
And
he was a janitor.
Okay, that makes sense.
Janitor.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Totally. Thank you, Devin. Thank you.
You are
Internet.
welcome.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you, Siri.
Yeah. Should we have Siri on the show one of these days?
No.
That'd be kind of fun.
I think
She's a little uppity.
Our special guest, Siri. That'd be kind of fun to interrogate her, wouldn't it? And also, there was one other little piece of evidence at the crime scene, which was some love letters, apparently fragments, torn up, apparently written by Eleanor to her lover, the Reverend Hall. They'd been torn up and scattered about the scene, although in some accounts there were just some fragments between the bodies, and that was it. So I've heard it both ways.
Well,
and
I guess it's possible that when the bodies were initially discovered, they were all over the place, and the only ones that were left by the time the cops got there were the ones that were in between the bodies.
That's also very, very possible. I'm pretty sure at least a few of those things got snagged by the locals and pocketed.
Also, that's not looking very great for the husband. Love letters being torn up and scattered around their dead bodies.
They were from her to him.
Yeah.
So are you saying that's for her husband that's not looking good? Mm-hmm. How was he going to find them? They weren't in his home.
Who said she sent them yet?
That's true, I suppose.
I guess when it's love letters, plural, I would presume. And I seem to remember that they were letters written to... This affair had been going on for years. Mm-hmm. I seem to remember that they were letters over a significant span of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would seem to point more of a fat finger of guilt at the wife of the Reverend
Oh, he
Hall.
had a wife.
He did have a wife. I was going to mention her in a minute.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
He did have a wife.
Let's talk about her.
He was married to Frances Stevens, who, of course, became Frances Stevens Hall. She was 7 years older than him, and frankly, she was really not nearly as much of a looker as Eleanor. I'm sure you've seen her pictures, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, she was like 47.
Yeah, I mean, she was like 48,
47, 48.
Yeah.
Late, almost 50, whereas Eleanor was 34.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of an unfair comparison.
I mean,
yeah. It is. It is, but... so that probably explains the wandering eye, and the part of the did have though going for her was she had lots and lots of money because she had married. They married, I think, about 11 years before the murder.
Okay.
And she was 37 at the time, and then a few years later she inherited a family fortune, which was like millions.
Like in today's money, or like
no, that wasn't those days' money.
Oh.
So A lot of money.
That's a good reason to marry someone.
I'd say so.
Says the not romantic. The good news is my boyfriend doesn't listen to this podcast, so he has no idea.
Oh, thank God. Yeah. People. I don't know. People might have been a little more practical about marriage back in those days too. I think
it was a much different perspective on it.
I think some people were, but not everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And speaking of marriage, Eleanor, of course, was married. She got married at age 17. She had a couple of kids with her husband, Jimmy Mills. And she had been involved with the church, the Episcopal Church, for about 10 years or so.
And did the Halls have children?
Not that I know of.
Not that I have ever seen anything on, no.
Yeah. I think she was already 37 when they married, so especially it's hard enough these days to have a child if you're 37. I mean, it happens, even in the old days.
Yep. I'm just remembering some emails that we got after we talked about Elizabeth's supposed potential fertility at that age. So I'm just not going to say one way or another if that was a thing.
No, it's entirely possible, but the odds.
The odds are less, but it is still totally possible as long as they are doing the practice that results in children.
And what is that? Okay,
it's the first part of the thing that the husband was.
The ton. Okay. And then what account I've heard that Eleanor Mills. On the 14th, the day of the murder, she had found an article apparently discussing justifications for a minister getting a divorce. Because apparently that was kind of frowned upon.
Well, divorce in general was...
Oh, yeah. It was a lot rarer in those days. It was not nearly as easy a thing as it is today. But she called Hall and essentially wanted to meet him on Jerusalem Lane to talk about this article and to talk about, maybe them, somehow ditching their spouses and getting together. And
wait, so just because I keep getting them mixed up, so Mrs. Mills, the lady who was killed, found an article and got Mr. Hall to meet her to talk about this. Reverend Hall.
Reverend Hall, yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
And maybe to talk about other stuff, maybe to have sex, I don't know. But
a liaison, if you will.
Yeah, it could have been all kinds of things, but apparently he left his house around 7:30 p.m. He was seen by somebody or another walking towards Jerusalem Lane on Easton Avenue. And that was the last time any of those guys were seen alive.
She was last seen at her house about 6 that night, I think.
Something like that,
and since she had church business to deal with.
Yeah.
Apparently her husband... Technically, she was telling the truth.
Not lying.
But her husband, kind of did what she said to, he tried to argue with her, and she just said, fine, then come with me. And he's like, okay, I won't go. And that was the last time he saw her.
I guess he's wishing he would have gone with her, but oh well. Hindsight 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The next day, Frances Hall, that would be the Reverend Hall's wife, noted his absence. I think I had heard that she went by the church about 2 a.m. to check on him with her brother.
She took one of her brothers,
Yeah. She had one of her brothers was living with her at the time. The other one was living very close by.
A real recipe for romance.
When you have your brother living with you, yes.
Yeah, for sure. So she had noted the next day that Hall was gone, and she at one point did call the police apparently and ask them if they turned up any bodies or anything. Because it's kind of a strange thing. Usually you call them and say, I'm sorry, my husband is missing. Have you had any reports, or anything like that? Instead you call them up and just say, hey, found any corpses?
I guess I can see it from the perspective of if she's in a bit of a panic, then have you found any bodies? No? Okay, great. Boom, boom. God, I got to keep looking. Well, I could see that side of it.
Or that she, it's possible she had called the local hospitals or was friendly with a local doctor or, whatever, and had already found out, no, he's not in any kind of medical care. So, okay, well, the next step is...
Yeah, looking for a body.
Did he turn up dead somewhere?
Or you call up and say, is he in the drunk tank?
Yeah. Although
Did you arrest him?
I am.
Did he get into the wine at the church?
Yeah.
Communion.
Yeah.
Because that's good stuff.
The following day, the 16th, of course, the bodies were found. And, of course, the immediate obvious suspects are the spouses, right? James Mills and Frances Hall.
Yeah.
So James Mills was rounded up first, probably because he was poor. She was rich. So
super rich.
She was affluent. You don't go after the affluent.
Yeah. You want to treat them with more kid gloves.
Also, I think realistically in the 20s, it's definitely more likely that they would have just assumed that it was a man who did this.
Sure.
I mean, that's definitely
Well, you know,
something.
I think typically, you know, I mean, women commit murder all the time, but, you know, definitely when in situations like that, it's probably the guy who's more likely to become homicidally violent. You know, I would think. I mean, some women would, but, you know, more likely the guy, right?
Yeah.
I know.
Statistically.
Yeah, I'll get some angry emails about that, but, you know, hey, I think it's true.
Probably.
And then not long after that, some people, there were like about 4 different people in the area, in the immediate area, who said they had heard gunshots. And then one of them was Jane Gibson, who became known as the Pig Lady.
Such a terrible nickname.
Yeah,
Why?
God, the newspapers are terrible because she had a pig farm.
Yeah, she had a pig farm, and I think she was growing some crops too. And I don't know if she was growing them for sale or just to feed to her hogs. I'm not sure. But she told police that she had heard a dog barking about 9 p.m. and that she saw a man standing in her cornfield. And so she hopped on her mule, which is kind of funny when you think about it. Why not just walk out there? But she got on her mule and rode out there, and
A mule can trot faster than you can walk.
I
It's much
suppose